Hi, this is Tamara at mooglyblog.com, and this video is a reader request. I'm going to show you how to make multicolored grannies, but instead of doing it the usual way, while it might look like a traditional granny square with different colors for each row, I'm going to use a lot of the tricks that I've shown you on the blog to make this granny square just as perfect as it can be. So let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and start with blue, and for this I'm using Vanna's Choice, and of course you can use any yarn you like. And most granny squares start with a chain 4 and a slip stitch to create a circle. That I'm going to go ahead and do. They do this to create an open hole in the center. If you wanted a closed hole in the center of your granny square, you would probably want to use a magic circle. Now, I already have videos on the blog and on my YouTube channel for the granny square and for several of the techniques that I'm going to use here. So if I go too fast through a particular technique, you'll want to go back and watch that particular video. This is just to show how to combine them all to make the best multicolored granny possible. So here we've got our ring that made out of our chain 4. Now to start row 1, I am going to use a chainless starting double crochet. So I'm going to pull up a loop. I'm going to hold it down with my finger, yarn over with the working yarn, pull it around, and finish a double crochet. Then I'm going to chain 2, 1, 2. Then I'm going to work 3 double crochets into the ring. And this part looks a lot like a regular granny square without any tricks, and even in just one color. The only difference so far is that I use that chainless starting double crochet rather than chaining 3. So that's 3 double crochets. I'll chain 2, get some more yarn here. 3 more double crochets into the ring. 1, oops, 2, and 3. Chain 2. I even have videos for double crochet and chaining on my YouTube channel and on my blog, so if you are just now learning about crochet, don't worry. I know I'm going quickly, but there are videos that break each step down. There's 3 more double crochets, and now those chain 2s make the corners. We've got 1, 2, 3, so let's make one more corner, chain 2. And here we've already got that chainless starting double crochet. That's going to be the 3rd one, so we just work 2 more. 1, 2. And here, instead of slip stitching, I'm going to go ahead and cut the yarn. Okay, and then I'm going to use the hook and pull the loop on through that last stitch there. Use a yarn or tapestry needle. Thread the yarn on the needle and use this to do a seamless finish into the top of that chainless starting double crochet. I just go under the top 2 loops with the needle, front to back, pull through, go back down that last stitch between the loops of the V, and close it up. And at this point, it's always good to weave in your ends as you go, but I'm just going to kind of run it through here for the sake of time on the video. And I'm going to go ahead and cut it just to get it out of our way. I would suggest a lot more weaving when you make a real granny square. Okay, you can see we have round 1. And because of that chainless starting double crochet, it's much harder to see where that first double crochet is. We don't have a telltale chain 3. So let's get started with round 2. I'm going to grab another color. And here I'm going to use a standing double crochet. I'm going to hold on to the yarn with this hand. Again, there's a separate video for this that goes through it much slower. Wrap it around twice, pick up round 1, and I'm going to go into the chain 2 space in the corner. Pull up a loop and work it as a regular double crochet. Snag it over here to the right, kind of tug it over so it's to the far right of that chain 2. Go ahead and right away work 2 more double crochets in the chain 2. Then chain 2 to make our new corner, and work 3 double crochets in that corner. At this point we can let go of that tail from the starting double crochet because that stitch is in place. Okay, so we've got basically double crochet 3, chain 2, double crochet 3. Then we're going to chain 1, skip these 3 double crochets, and work another 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets in the corner. Chain 2, 3 more. And 3. Now I have written out instructions for this too on the blog. If you go to the link, if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll want to go to the link in the description. And that article on the blog will have links to all the different stitches, well, the special stitches. And if you go to the video tutorials page, you'll also find tutorials for the double crochet and chaining, slip stitching. Okay, and as you can see, there's a basic pattern to granny squares. In every corner, you're going to have 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Anytime you skip a section of 3 double crochets like that, you're going to have a chain 1. So it's time to skip these 3, so we chain 1 and make the last of our corners here. Always 4 corners. If you've got more than 4 corners, you're not making a square. So 2 chains, a little bit more yarn here. You can see I'm using little balls of yarn. Granny squares are a great way to use up your scraps, especially multicolored grannies like this. Okay, so we've made our 4 corners. We need to skip over these 3, so I'm going to chain 1 and then cut the yarn. Okay, and just as before, pull it up through, put it on the yarn needle, and work a seamless join going into the top of that standing double crochet. And this, because we're going into a chain, I'll kind of angle it back into some of those other stitches so it can be woven in. And again, for the sake of time, I'm just going to do a really quick weave in. If I was making this to put it in a blanket, I would do a lot more weaving back and forth and piercing the yarn with the needle. I have a video tutorial for that too. Again, just check the video tutorials page. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and cut it off so we can keep moving. Okay, get that out of the way. All right, let's start round 3. I'm going to grab some green yarn here. And just as before, I'm going to hold it and get ready to work a standing double crochet. Yarn over twice and go into a corner. Now, it doesn't matter which corner you go into. In fact, I recommend you mix it up a little bit so that any telltale signs of where you did start are completely hidden. So this time we'll pick this one. Go into a chain 2 corner, work the double crochet, and then just as before, 2 more double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets to make the corner of the square. There's 2, and then 3. Okay, and then I explained it pretty well in the last one, but we'll go over it one more time because I'm going to skip these 3. I'm going to chain 1, and then right in that chain 1 space, I'm going to work 3 more double crochets. The great thing about granny squares is you never really have to count much beyond 3. Okay, we need to skip another 3, so we're going to chain 1, and then we're back in a corner. So we work 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And then there's our 3. So as I mentioned, there are videos on the blog. The 4 that you'll want to watch, if you're not familiar already with them, are traditional granny squares, just to get an idea of how they're made with one color. There is a video tutorial for the seamless finishing, which is that seamless join where I use the needle. And there are videos for the chainless starting double crochet, which we use to start round 1, as well as for the standing double crochet. And those last 2 also have photo tutorials. So you can really take the time and study how those are made. For the sake of time in this one, as I said, I'm not really going into the details here. So chain 1, skip those 3, work 3 into that chain 1 space. And you can see too, once you get the hang of granny squares, they really do come together quite quickly. We're back in a corner. So 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. And you can see too, you can stop at any point here. You can make a 1 round granny square, 2 round, 3 round, 4 round. You could keep going and make an entire blanket out of just one giant granny square. Of course, by the time you get to the end, you're going to be not working with scraps anymore. You're going to need full skeins depending on the size of the blanket. But it can be a great way to use up your scrap yarn. So there we are. Skip 3, chain 1, work 3 in the center here. And then chain 1. And we're back here to our first one. And you can tell it looks just like a normal double crochet there. It's very well hidden. So we're going to go ahead and cut the green yarn, pull that loop through, and in the example I showed you, we had 4 rounds. We had a 4th round here in red, but I think this is sufficient for you to see the pattern. We work 3 in those chain 1 spaces, 3, chain 2, 3 for the corners. Now, if I were making a bunch of small granny squares and I wanted to join them all together later, I'm going to show you, you'll want to use the seamless finishing a little bit differently for the very last round. For the other rounds, it doesn't matter as much, but for this one, in order to keep the same number of stitches on each side to make it easier to attach them to each other, instead of joining to the top of that first stitch, the standing double crochet, you're actually going to join to the second one, the first regular double crochet of the round. What this does is keep the stitch count completely even because the seamless finishing would otherwise create visually an extra stitch. And now when you're working groups of 3 double crochets over it, it doesn't really matter. But for that last round, you'll want to make sure that your stitch count is just right. Weave in all your ends as before. And that's really all there is to making multicolored granny squares. Thanks for watching.